Welcome back.
Welcome back, family, to Hear Us Out. I'm Renee.
I'm Curry.
Once again, thank you so much for listening and to subscribing, and to our new listeners who are here. And for those who found us for the first time, make sure that you hit subscribe so that you can continue to get notifications to Hear Us Out.
Yes, thank you. And on this episode, we will be doing a slight departure
Mm-hmm.
from what we said we were going to be doing.
Right.
Because in our last episode, we started reading and discussing Plato.
Right. Mm-hmm.
As it was Ion and all that stuff. And we're still going over Minnow, which is the next
Yeah,
dialogue.
the next dialogue, right.
And in the meantime, we decided to talk about something I think is a bit more timely and pressing.
Yes, apathy.
Yes.
And like I mentioned to you before, when I think about the apathy, what those words mean: sympathy, empathy, and apathy. See, how I remember it is that, empathy is to, put yourself in someone else's shoes, to understand and go through their learning and experience. I think of sympathy as, I feel sorry for you. You feel sorry for the situation, so you sympathize.
Mm-hmm.
And apathy is indifference.
Mm.
You're not even concerned, So
Yeah.
yeah, and we look at our current situation, which seems to be our past, present, and future.
Yeah.
Of everything that's happening, the angst, war, the despair that's happening, and apathy
The
tends to
existential dread
right.
for the future,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is something that is it's not new,
Correct.
but I think it typifies this current generation that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly
Yeah.
because, like you said, empathy, sympathy, those things entail actions, or
Mm-hmm.
in and of themselves are actions.
Right.
Whereas apathy is a lack thereof.
Right. Correct.
It is a lack of any reaction
Mm-hmm.
at all. And it comes from, like I said, this existential dread. It just reminds me of like some of the stories you hear about, like during the '60s and '70s during the
Mm-hmm.
Cold War,
Mm-hmm.
when you were doing, nuclear drills in school,
Right.
like the type of existential dread you had for the future,
Mm-hmm.
which led directly into the '80s, which was over and overconsumption, a very
Mm-hmm.
greedy time in American history.
Yeah, trickle down economics and
Mm-hmm.
all that other foolishness.
Greed is good,
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff.
Right.
And now we're living in an era, once again, where it's not nuclear war. Well, not just nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's climate change.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you said, it's war and
Mm-hmm.
sickness and disease, and more than anything, it is a lack of action, a lack of I don't know, a lack of actual steps
Mm-hmm.
toward anything constructive by those people, by the people in place, by the people in power,
Mm-hmm.
the people in the best positions to actually address our situation aren't doing nowhere near enough, if they're doing anything at all,
Right. Mm-hmm.
to actually address the issues that we have today. So and it leads toward this feeling of just this existential dread
Mm-hmm.
for the future, feeling like it's hopeless. There's
Mm-hmm.
just nothing we can do. And that feeling, I feel, has been weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
There are, industries. Listen, like you just think about,
Right.
climate change,
Mm-hmm.
right? How the goalpost has always been shifting and moving. It
Mm-hmm.
went from, climate change isn't real to climate change is real, but it's not humans doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or what climate change is human caused, but minimally.
Right.
Or well, now it's at the climate change is just here and there's nothing we
We
can
do
do
about
about it,
it. Mm-hmm.
right? And even then, when you talk about all of the things that happen, like you think about the war,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, well, it's just a byproduct of
Right.
society, of how
Mm-hmm.
we live, how we exist. You think of all these, like hunger and crime and homelessness and then the wealth disparity, all these things that I think it's seen at least at the upper strata of our society. So,
Mm-hmm.
but by the people who actually can, challenge and or change these things, it's seen by them as just the cost of doing business.
Yes, if you just understand us here, that we have to look at these problems that are so pervasive and that do exist. And now we have to look at, well, why do these problems persist? Why are these problems here? And we simply have to look at those who benefit from it, not those who suffer under it.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently that's why the problem is still here, because you have folk who are benefiting from it, and they are willing and quite able, because they are benefiting from it, to lay the blame or the focus on others who are under the boot of it. Even right now, I mean, there are simple things that we can do to turn this around. And yet, it literally takes an act of Congress to move people to do things to turn this around. I mean, we understand.
But that's the thing. That's it's not. People want to move.
Mm-hmm.
People want to. I just think about like the gas crisis going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
The gas is very expensive, and it's only looking to get more expensive as more sanctions are being passed and all this stuff on Russia. And I have a hard time even believing that this is behind Russia.
Yes, it's not. It's not.
I have a hard time.
What has happened is that you have taken a particular crisis and you're taking advantage of it in this way.
I think you're trying to recoup your losses.
Yes, pretty much
from the COVID thing when nobody was.
When no one was driving.
I think all prices fell into the negative.
Right.
At the during that and all that stuff, and now you like to say you're using that crisis to try to recoup your losses.
Yeah.
But however you want to look at it, there are so many things that could be done, right? And it's like we don't want to be using that stuff to begin with because it's leading toward it's leading toward this climate change, this existential dread, this crisis, in the future. Which is it's not the future. It is tending towards a lot of very climatic, environmental issues that are happening at this moment.
Yeah, but people have become so cynical now.
I don't think that's the case.
Look, you have folk who are still, you have these businesses and enterprises, right? That they're still building condos on the coast of Miami, right? And these places. And so you have people who are like, well, there must not be any climate changes if you have these Fortune 500 billion dollar companies that are building. I'm just saying.
I'm like, that's not an accurate representation of what people are feeling right now.
But that is there. I'm not saying that it's a majority or anything of the sort.
That's what I'm saying. But I don't think that's what a majority of people are feeling.
Well, okay. So if the majority of the people are feeling that there is a problem, we need to confront these issues, that we need to do something about these issues. Again, so
because they aren't convenient.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying is that
we talked about that.
Yeah, when you have because you have this this gas crisis going on right now. You have exorbitant prices, but the thing is, you don't want to be using gas at all, really.
Right.
But you don't have any choice at the moment right now. But even though electric is becoming more viable, it's becoming cheaper, more available, we're still at the point where a lot of low-income families, which is a majority of the people in the country right now, simply cannot afford it.
Right.
Right. And with the exorbitant gas prices right now, it's not helping. But so what the government decided to do was dip into their oil reserves to drop the prices of gas, which is like, but there were so many things you could have done at that moment.
I agree.
You could have, like I said
literally make public transportation free,
or just use your military.
Right.
Use your military and be like, we are going to. You said we're going to flood the public transportation system in our country, right? So if you have somewhere to go, we're going to overhaul our system. with our own reserves that are already here, who
Right.
already have all the equipment needed,
Yes.
to implement something like this.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. That's what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to overhaul our public transportation system during this crisis and hopefully for the foreseeable future, so we can mitigate some of the more
Right.
disastrous effects
Mm-hmm.
of growing oil
Right.
prices. And like that, you could have done something
Yeah.
like that. But there's this idea of, well, people just don't care and they wouldn't do that. They don't want to give up on their cars and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not the case. The
Right.
thing is that
And that's not necessarily the point. The point is that you are facilitating and and fostering a way to assist people, b to get us off of all of this oil, and c to try to avoid even having to come in contact with all these nefarious
and that's like I said, and
governments or
that's the
whatever.
is that but you have not made you haven't made that avenue
Mm-hmm.
because there's this idea that people wouldn't take it, right? That
Well.
people wouldn't take it, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
There's this idea like this weaponized
Yes.
hopelessness. There's this idea
You.
that people would not do it. And like that's not the case. What you see is not apathy. It's a lack of convenience. It's a lack of choice. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with the shutdown,
Mm-hmm.
right? People don't want to stay inside. Well, you haven't made that convenient for them.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't given them an avenue where they can maintain,
Right. Themselves. Right.
themselves on an economic, on an economic level, on a social level,
Mm-hmm.
by staying inside. You
Mm-hmm.
haven't given them anything. You
Right.
haven't given them any subsidies. You haven't given them any money. You haven't given them any idea of the things that they can do inside their own
Mm-hmm.
home to help mitigate the
Yeah.
situation.
You
You
wanted to
didn't make
keep.
it convenient.
Yeah. You wanted to keep enough angst there so that you could continue on as if nothing
Yeah, and
didn't
there's
evolve or didn't
and there was like
so yeah.
this idea of, well, people didn't want that, they wouldn't do that and stuff like that, and
Yes,
it's
they
like,
would.
but yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
You have like the Great Resignation. You
Mm-hmm.
have all this stuff. You have people being like, well, if I can do this at home, why do I even have to drive,
Right.
halfway across the city
Right.
to go to this building when I can just do it here,
Mm-hmm.
and but you didn't do that.
Right.
You didn't make that convenient.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the majority of people want to do. If you give them that option, they will choose it. This isn't a people always say that America is a country of personal freedoms,
Mm-hmm.
right? That people will always do anything to maintain their personal freedoms,
Mm-hmm.
right? Cars and job choice and even health insurance
Mm-hmm.
choice, all that stuff. It's all about your personal freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's never been the case ever, ever.
Right.
It's always been about convenience.
Mm-hmm.
People, a manifest destiny was the explicit doctrine of the government.
Mm-hmm.
What people were looking for was just land that they can settle on with their families and make some type of living.
Right.
They didn't care about the grander narrative as a country,
Mm-hmm.
right? The country may have used that to justify,
Right.
the
Quotation.
myriad,
Right.
the myriad atrocities that happened during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But even like we talked about with slavery,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to be racist to own a slave. You just wanted to make money.
Mm-hmm.
That's all this is, and you have made it inconvenient,
Mm-hmm.
expressly inconvenient, to do anything outside of those things which directly benefit the system as it is.
Right. So you've made it inconvenient to simply just do things correctly or right.
Yeah, because there's this narrative of apathy,
Mm-hmm.
of people just not caring and not wanting to do anything because and I'm sure that is a very strong element,
Mm-hmm.
but that existential dread of looking at our future and seeing that it's just hopeless, we can't do anything about it. But it's not coming from the future in and of itself.
Right.
It's coming from the people, the leaders in place
Mm-hmm.
today, who are using that apathy, right, to maintain
Okay. So what?
that
So what's the
existential dread.
fringe behavior? Right? Is the fringe behavior those who are I guess benefiting from this angst, right? Is that the fringe behavior?
What do you mean by fringe behavior?
That they aren't the majority.
Well, yes,
All right.
in that
So the
a
thing is,
majority of people aren't benefiting from
that's
it.
right.
Yes.
So in that case, how is it that we can just start building from those that are not the fringe?
But that's it's you.
How do I do this?
No, but you can't even like get to that part of the conversation because it's nothing will ever be enough.
Mm-hmm.
Not on this level.
Correct. I'm not disagreeing. Yes.
So there's always little things that we can do and stuff like that. But the big thing is uh, putting pressure on the people at the very top to implement the type of changes that you want to see, because that's how you create actual long lasting change,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's how it happens. And I'm like, and it's weird to me how the last thing to change is always the policy.
Mm-hmm.
The policy has never provoked any
Right.
change.
That's correct.
It's always just solidified and maintained
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is always short term on our end unless the policy is there to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Our politicians and our government has never been, arbiters of change. They've always, tried to maintain the system. You
Mm-hmm.
see that even to this
The
day
date.
with like
Right.
the constitutional fundamentalists and stuff like that, who refuse to change anything about our government
Mm-hmm.
because it's not the express written consent of the founding fathers of people who lived centuries ago.
Mm-hmm.
All
You're
right.
not answering the call of your people today.
Yeah, and it's
You're
like,
trying to keep them confined, to these
and that's
particular.
why our societies are so wasteful.
Mm-hmm.
They're so wasteful. It's not because there's too many people.
Yeah.
No, it's
Right.
because you have a system that has not been optimized in any way, shape, or form since 1840 or whatever.
Right.
And it's like you haven't optimized the you haven't even optimized the energy infrastructure in this
Right. Let
country.
alone
Just
anything.
doing
Right.
that
Mm-hmm.
would greatly benefit climate change,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Just overhauling the energy system in our
Mm-hmm.
country, right? But you won't even think you're
Right.
not even doing that.
That's what I'm saying. It
But what
literally
you would do
do.
is don't go into your oil
Right.
reserves, and it's like this is you're the one create. It's not the future.
Right.
It's not the it's not the future that's creating the apathy.
Mm-hmm.
You're creating the future
Mm-hmm.
that then creates
It's
that
the
apathy.
apathy. Right.
You're the one doing it. It's like you're weaponizing hopelessness
Mm-hmm.
to maintain the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it like you see it all over the place.
Yeah.
You see it all over the place, and I like it sticks in my mind because it leans toward this narrative that people just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel it's the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
that people care, people want to do something,
Mm-hmm.
but those people in power who have a vested interest in making sure things don't change,
Correct.
they're the ones.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who are making sure that nothing can change, that nothing happens. They're the
Mm-hmm.
ones who don't care. But the thing is, they do care. They care
Mm-hmm.
about their profits.
Right.
They care about their way of life.
Right. That's why you had all these lying CEOs of
Mm-hmm.
all these different oil companies talking about, no, we're not price gouging, we're not doing it. I'm like, shut up
That's
already.
exactly what
That's
they're
exactly
doing.
what you're doing. And you're sitting there, you're lying, and these politicians, congressmen or whatever, asking these questions, and they all repeat the same thing like robots. I'm like, what is this? What are we doing here? And why are we entertaining this?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows what needs to be done. We know this, and yet we're entertaining this foolishness. This is what we're doing. I mean, so look, you tell me that there is more people who want to do right, like who
Mm-hmm.
just generally want to do the right thing, and at every well, I'm not, but at every avenue, there's always this roadblock that's being put up for you to simply just do the right thing. I don't understand, like, the problems that we are having. Like, this shouldn't even be a problem. How is homelessness?
Mm-hmm.
We should not be having this issue. We should not be still fighting for, increases in minimum wage. We have an entire inflation up the wazoo. Wages are still not going up. Everything else is going up except your wages. And you're finding every excuse to not increase, to not do these things, even though we know that if you decrease poverty,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you decrease you
Actually giving them
by
a home.
actually doing the things that you know.
They're homeless, give them a home.
It's
And
actually
it's cheaper
cheaper
in the
to do
long run.
that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to go that route. You want to go all these other avenues and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to imprison them. When a house could have facilitated so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this. You know this going in. So I'm like, I don't understand, you know, like, why is this so difficult? When you tell me that there are more of us who want to do right. Like, the fringe, those who are benefiting from the problem. We know that they don't even have enough of them.
But they hold the most
The,
power.
so how? Well, how can we just do what needs to be done?
Well, the main thing is that we can stop using apathy as
Mm-hmm.
an excuse
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
because it's not real. It's oh well, it's not. It's artificial.
Okay.
It's man-made.
Mm-hmm.
It's a contrived plot, as far as I'm concerned, by the people in power to maintain their power.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we can just stop thinking that people don't care
Mm-hmm.
or that people wouldn't do the right thing if given the choice. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something we've talked about
Many a time.
many a times
Right.
before. You know, on what's the problem, where does it come from, and all this stuff. And but it's like there's all the lack of convenience is very prevalent
Mm-hmm.
because it makes it so hard to like maintain a sustained opposition toward the system because this is still the system you have to exist in. Like
Mm-hmm.
you still have the bills to pay
Mm-hmm.
and mouths to feed and
Mm-hmm.
all these things. So you can oppose it as much as you want, and I'm sure that a majority, I would have to say 99.9%
Mm-hmm.
of workers who have to actually work in all of these companies,
Mm-hmm.
who have to actually deal with all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
are not happy.
Mm-hmm.
They are not satisfied. They
Mm-hmm.
would like for something to change about what it is that they do, how much they're paid, the environment they have to exist in, all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's hard to maintain a sustained effort against those things when you still have to work there,
Mm-hmm.
when you still have to, make a living. And
Right.
it's like, and that's how this maintains itself
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want this. I like when you look at like the policies. Most people are socialists.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are socialists.
Mm-hmm.
Most people want that. They want these
Mm-hmm.
things. Most people agree with with Bernie Sanders and all those people and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. They agree with that. But the system doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So the system does not reflect that. The people in power, do not reflect that. And they're so deeply entrenched, you know, they're
Yep.
so deeply entrenched in that mindset that it can't that trying to oppose is like you can't you have to create a whole separate, like we talked about many times
Yes.
before, but in the anarchy episode and stuff like that, you have to create a whole separate thing,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to find a way to sustain it physically and mentally, from an infrastructural level,
Mm-hmm.
from an economic level. You have
Mm-hmm.
to create something that is a sustainable alternative. And that, what that is, like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about with anarchy and stuff like that, there is no catch all. There's no
Right.
one answer at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of just working from a basis,
Mm-hmm.
from an ideal basis. But the thing that we're seeing now is that you're seeing this tiredness.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it numbness. You
Right.
see
It's
this
tired. Yeah. I don't think
tiredness,
people are numb.
yeah,
I will agree with that.
from the current generation.
Mm-hmm.
People are they're younger and younger and younger, and they're more tired than ever
Mm-hmm.
because I think social media has kind of sped everything up
Mm-hmm.
because there's no grace period in life anymore where
Right.
you live in blissful ignorance as a
Mm-hmm.
child, and then as you get older, you become more exposed to
Mm-hmm.
the gritty reality of
Right.
things. No,
Not anymore. Right.
on social media, you get it fed directly to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's how these websites maintain themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They feed you all this, you know,
Stuff.
stuff, all
Right.
this the worst of the worst, all the
Mm-hmm.
most toxic, negative elements of humanity, because that's the most addictive parts.
Mm-hmm.
You just get swirled up in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the like people 13 years old, like, I'm tired. I
Mm-hmm.
want something else. I don't want to do this.
Right.
It's a raw deal. And they're right.
Yes.
It's a raw deal. Like we've said many times, it's a pyramid scheme.
Yep.
It's a pyramid
Yep.
scheme.
Ponzi scheme.
Life,
Right.
living is a job you were born into,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do it, or you're going to starve to death.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pyramid scheme, and they tell you if you do this and you do well, you're going to move up. And
Right.
well, I did this and I'm still here because it's a pyramid scheme.
Right.
It's a raw deal. You're
Mm-hmm.
not meant to make it. You're meant to just occupy a role and die.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And people are being exposed to that earlier and earlier and earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find it funny that you have the oldest people who are the most staunch against any type of
Right.
newness, at least the way that they like to paint it up.
Mm-hmm.
The media like to paint it up.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
also don't
Right.
think that's the case. I think that's a minority even amongst them.
Mm-hmm.
But you always like to paint up like these older people who have even though they come from the most socialist era ever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not impossible for you to do these things.
Right.
When it was like the fate of the country is at stake, we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can make like right then.
Right.
But right now, nothing is threatening your economy.
Mm-hmm.
Your economy is large, it's healthy,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get larger, it's going to get healthier.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make money hand over foot.
Right.
There's nothing holding you to the mark outside of human decency,
That's
which
it.
you clearly lack.
Yep. I keep saying that.
So it's like people agree with each other.
Mm-hmm.
People are on the same side.
Mm-hmm.
It's been this way, like even we talked about with the Civil War, with the Freedmen's Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
They went to the white man.
Mm-hmm.
Free black politicians went to white people and said, "You are poor too." Like we said, how can you be poor during slavery?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Right.
You can literally own another human being to do the work for you, and you're still poor. How is that possible?
Right. Yeah, y'all been lied to as well.
You've been lied to. And you know what white people say at the time? Yeah, we were lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? The Democrats went up to those people and said, well, who's going to have to pay for it?
Right.
And now you get this new category called the taxpayer.
Right.
Right? And everything fell apart because now they're looking, we're going to have to foot the bill, and then you can play up all the racial stuff that you want to. Mm-hmm. All the reparations type stuff, forcing me to foot the bill, forcing me to, I ain't have nothing, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
All this stuff.
Yep, all this foolishness.
Yes.
Right.
And we're stuck in this cycle of all of us having the same problems. Mm-hmm. Right? But we're pointing at each other.
Right.
We're pointing at each other, and it's like, and that's, and it makes it feel impossible, and that's the point. Mm-hmm. They want you to look at it and say, "Well, that's too much.
That is just too much. I can't do anything about it. It's resistance is futile, basically." Yeah. And so it's being played up over and over again. Think about practically any city, right? Where you have all of these, they call it desert. These food deserts, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, how is that even possible? How do you have food deserts? And then you have food deserts. They tend to be in, predominantly black, neighborhoods, mm-hmm. right? I'm like, are you telling me that black people don't buy groceries? They don't buy seasoning, stuff like that?
Yeah.
I mean, stop this. There is no way that a food store should ever, not be there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go with maybe the size and the scope of the cities, and so things are so far away. I'm like, why couldn't a city like a New Orleans or Chicago, since
Mhm.
since we're here, you know, I'm like, you can literally create. I'm like, there are enough storefronts and corner stores in this city. They're like all over the place.
Mhm.
You can literally create these corner stores, that provides that have available, the fruits, vegetables, and,
Mhm.
and all the stuff they need, right? I'm like, you don't need like necessarily big box stores. You can just,
Yeah, they
if you don't, if
subsidize the
yeah,
smaller neighborhood
that's it.
stores.
That's all you have to do. I'm like, look how many jobs you would create doing something like that.
Mhm.
Look how many young folk will literally be off the streets. You have young people, they have like their little farmer markets in the
Mhm.
summertime. It's young people like teenagers, and young 20-year-olds who have like they're in these farmer
Mhm.
markets. Imagine if they were able to run, these storefronts and corner stores. You
Mhm.
could literally like, I don't know what kind of name you would come up for it, but you could put a stamp, Chicago's own, and
Mhm.
like you could do a whole. It could be a whole whatever, and look how many other things would be propagated from that. Just doing something that simple,
Mhm.
like we are literally throwing food away.
Literally.
We are producing so much that we are throwing it away. How?
How is that possible
How?
for anyone to go hungry in this country?
That's what I'm saying. And you're talking about food. I'm like, what is this? Like, I drive. We go around the
Yeah,
city all the time. There's stuff like they're all like, what are we doing here?
and they'll tell you it's because people just don't care.
Whatever.
People
You
just don't care. They're like, no,
no,
you
you're not
haven't
even.
made it viable
But that's right.
for them.
That's right.
You haven't
You're
given
cutting
them.
this off.
Yeah, instead of telling people don't put your excess food in the trash,
Hmm.
we're going to give you this option. Like if you have excess stuff like that,
Hmm.
put it here. That we'll redistribute it to the most
Right.
needy, peoples.
Right. I'm like, like you have these forms and all like they're they're producing. They have to throw stuff away. They have to literally turn it into animal feed because it's not.
But that's the same. It's the
You
same thing
know,
that a lot of these supermarkets do.
yeah,
Like when they have like food and stuff that goes beyond their expiration
expiration
date,
date.
quote unquote.
Hmm.
They have to just throw it away. I
Right.
think like that's a law. Like you can't even give it away. That's a law there. That's
See,
you have
see,
to give it
see.
away.
What I'm saying. See, we should be breaking that law.
Yeah.
Like, look, like you just have to. I know it
So
sounds
yeah.
sounds a
But
little
that, but that
cliche,
but that's
but
the thing.
that's
That's what I mean by
mhm,
inconvenient.
right,
To do the right thing, you have to break the law.
right,
You have to incur this personal risk. You have to
hmm,
put yourself at stake.
right.
Your job, your
Hmm.
welfare at stake to do the right thing in opposition to the law.
See, that's why
That's it.
this apathy, that type of thing.
Weaponized
Yeah, yeah.
hopelessness.
I'm like, we're not talking. I mean, this is simple stuff here. This is not anything
People,
extraordinary,
the things that people would do
right?
if just
Given
given
the
the opportunity
opportunity,
to do it,
right?
to making it feasible,
Hmm.
economically feasible, for them to actually just do the right thing. It is not impossible. It's not impossible. That was one of the big things with electric, like solar energy,
Hmm.
wind farms, stuff like that. It's
Right.
like it's so expensive. It's so
Hmm.
expensive. But just like over, the
Hmm.
years, it has rapidly decreased in price.
Hmm.
Now just wonder where we would be if they were doing that not in opposition,
Right.
to the status quo.
Hmm.
If they actually had government backing.
Right.
If this was a government something like they had government money
Hmm.
there to make it, how
Hmm.
far along would
It
we
would
be at
be.
this point? We're here in
Spite
spite
of it. That's
of the
right.
system.
Hmm.
We're here in spite of that.
Yeah, I mean, but we talk about it all the time. Like, think about this country and where this country is, right? This is with its racism,
Hmm.
classism, and sexism, and any other ism that you could possibly think of. This is where it is. Still, it's the biggest, the strongest economy, whatever you want to say.
Hmm.
Imagine, you can only imagine where it would be if it did not have racism.
Hmm.
Like when you fully allow people in. You understand? Like the ideas and the create, like, please. But no. But being able to constrain a people a particular way.
You foster that apathy.
Yes.
You foster that apathy, and then you use it as an excuse to not do
anything at all. And then when you do something,
it's too little, too late.
It's too little, too late, or you do it in a way and you set it up in a way for it to fail, so that you can point back and say, "See, told you."
Mm-hmm.
This
put all these qualifying marks on it.
Right.
That's one of the things Democrats do all the time.
Oh, disgusting.
We'll give you money as long as you're looking for a job, and you gotta, say that you've had an interview for a job. You gotta show proof that you've been looking, and you only got 6 months or whatever.
Right.
And it's like all this qualifying. Well, just give the people what they need. What is all this other stuff?
Look, understand.
That's not your business.
Right. Understand here that you're so busy looking at, well, if we give people houses, how are people going to get,
Why won't people want to work? They won't just give them away.
What? What are you talking about?
I always think that's
what makes you think people? What makes you think people aren't going to work? Like, I don't. As a matter of fact, you have a better workforce because the people that will be there would actually want to be there. You'll be able to foster all kind of other different creativities. What you think? I'm just saying.
It just won't be. It just won't be what it is now. It'll be something else. Now it's like the one thing that always makes me upset. While we're just talking about it, one is the idea of the handout. Like Americans aren't looking for a handout.
Whatever.
That always makes me so upset. So I'm like, what is? Okay, does the government print their own money? What do you mean handout? No, what do you get that money from anyway?
Right.
So we have to give you our money regardless. We don't have any choice in that.
Right.
You can take our money.
Yeah, tax.
Yeah. Right. You can just take our money.
Right.
Right. But to give it back now, that's a handout. Like what you print your own money?
Right.
Like government money is its own money and our money is different money.
Right.
So you literally have your
money.
It's our money.
That's right. The money is literally backed by the full faith of its people.
So it's literally our money. So
right.
There's no handout.
Right.
The American people don't want a hand. That doesn't make any sense. How does that? You're telling people that if you were to give them money, they'll be like, no. If you were to give them free health care, they're like, no.
Nah, I don't want that. Yeah, I want to pay for my house.
I want to pay for my house and make it feel like I earned it.
This is silly.
No, that is not
silly.
How people think.
Right. As a matter, they'll be thinking.
That's
just
how
imagine.
Your Fox News pundits think.
Right. Just imagine. Right? If you did not have a mortgage to pay. I didn't say anything about not paying electricity. Just no rent, no mortgage. If you just didn't have
just
that.
Had a place to stay.
If you just had a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
What? Y'all don't even look. If you think folks are just, coming up with stuff just to make it to space, there's no telling we'd probably be on Jupiter by now. Because of the freedom, because you don't have to worry about paying for a place. You pay $1,000 a month in rent or whatever it is. Imagine not having to pay $1,000. That money, because you still work, you still doing these things. It's like it will go into other things. It will foster other things. But that's the problem. That's the problem. Is that, but you don't have the angst though. You wouldn't have that. Yeah. So
you wouldn't have a knife to people's throat, a gun
that's
to
right.
their head, forcing them to take part in a system that they don't want to
take part in.
And it's just like you have, and when I say you, I mean the system.
Right.
The people who directly benefit and maintain this system have weaponized hopelessness to such an extent that people don't want to even have children. Like are having less and less children. Like this existential dread is leading toward extinction by our own hand. This is societal suicide.
But you're rich though.
Yeah, and it's like, you're saying that's good. Have less children. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, because we need population control anyway. It's too many people on the planet. Okay, whatever. This is the type of focus. Yeah.
This is what's happening right now. For all the things that this world has been through, that we as people have gone through, there have definitely been like physically been times where we've been in worse positions.
Yeah.
Yet it's this existential dread, this contrived plot by the people in power to maintain that power
Right.
that is going to lead to our end. That is leading
Yeah.
toward our end right now. And
And the
it's
thing
like,
is that we know that it is.
mm-hmm,
We know that it's leading there.
there's nothing that we can do outside of just short term
Mm-hmm.
alternatives that
Right.
can only last for so long.
Right.
That doesn't, like I said, it doesn't mean you don't do them. Do
Right.
them.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
them. But it's like our system is the last thing to change.
Mm-hmm.
We have to maintain a galvanized, sustained opposition toward this system,
At all
at
times.
all times. At all times, in every way possible, just to one day, just to one day. Because if we had to vote people out and vote them in and then hope those people follow through, right? Because they cannot.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a reoccurring problem
Yes. Since
of
forever.
people
Right.
saying that they're going to do something and then
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
so it's
mean,
like we have to maintain a sustained opposition towards this in every possible way to force them to then maintain the changes that we've already implemented in
mm-hmm.
ourselves. To make sure that that the system maintains a sustainable, convenient alternative.
To demand clean drinking water and actual access to clean drinking water, it makes you an activist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, you know, to demand, you know, not living in areas where, I don't know, there's chemicals being dumped in the air constantly
Mm-hmm.
that's causing cancer down the line. And then everyone is like, well, you have all of these lawyers in place. Well, we don't know for sure. And it takes 20, 30, 50 years to
Mm-hmm.
finally come to the conclusion
That we already knew.
that we already knew. Well, that makes you an activist. This is the type of foolishness that would, like,
Advocating for human
decency.
makes you an activist.
Advocate. It makes you an activist.
Yeah.
You have young people all around the world, from Kenya to the Netherlands or whatever, right? Young people, I'm talking teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
who are like, this is not working. We have to stop this. And you're like, oh, these children are being indoctrinated with left wing propaganda. What? They're literally like, we don't want trash. We want a clean environment. We want clean water. And because they're like teenagers, apparently it's some left wing propagandist, conspiracy theorists. They're using they're in what?
It's criminal race theory, and not criminal, critical race theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what is this? And then again, you have, and then the cynics come in, and they do just enough for that.
Mm-hmm.
They do just enough
To
in
maintain
weaponizing that hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what is? We're talking things that are very basic here.
Mm.
And I keep saying, if you can't do the basics, I don't ever worry about doing the big thing.
Yeah.
Because you can't even do the basics right, and you want to do them. That's the thing. We all know that we all want to do these things,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is being put in your way for you not to do it, or what they are willing to do is to, go the cheap route. Mm-hmm. See that black man right there? That's the reason why you're not making $15, $20 an hour, because we got to hire him. And you can't be paying them that kind of money. So that means that your wages have to go down. And so it's a whole.
And now we are pointing at each
other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Bringing up these old fears, these old pains that the country refuses to heal because they're useful.
Right.
And it's like
people, those are the type who are benefiting from this. And as long, and look.
But then but there's like people that I actually respect. Mm-hmm. Like I think about like Jon Stewart and stuff like that, who talk like people just don't care. Mm-hmm. Who say these things, and it's this pervasive image of people just not caring and who are prioritizing their own welfare over everything else. And it's like even I, feel that way sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's like that's one of the things that helps to maintain this.
Right. Think about it this way, right? the event of 9/11, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tragic event. You have firefighters and paramedics and all these people, right? That try to help,
Mm-hmm.
other people. And in doing that, they become ill, breathing in that toxic, asbestos and
Mm-hmm.
air and all that other stuff, right? It's literally taking like it's literally taking an act of Congress. People have to go before Congress. Like, what? Just give them
Mm-hmm.
the
What they
help.
need, yeah.
Just give them the medical care that they need. But instead, you're looking for every other reason not to do this. This is why it's the same thing I never understood with being a veteran. You're in their Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. You're fighting their wars, and you come back and they're trying to find reasons not to help you as a veteran. Like with this homelessness, a lot of these folks have literally fought in your wars
Mm-hmm.
to maintain, your freedoms over here.
Personal
Yeah,
freedom.
your personal freedoms over here. And then when they get here, that PTSD and all kind of issues.
And you don't want to help.
And you don't want to help them. And thinking that, that you're really not supposed to do this. Like, wouldn't it be just just the decent thing to do? The right, like,
Yeah, but like before you even look at the economic
right,
viability and all that other
right.
stuff, it's just a kind thing to
To
do.
do.
Just being nice.
Yes. Just be just be decent, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the most basic thing that you can do, but you won't
It is the
even do
bare
that.
minimum.
Right. You talk about like this homelessness, I'm always going back to that because you literally have in these cities, in towns alike, you have swats of abandoned houses,
Mm-hmm.
swats of abandoned apartment complexes, and you have folk literally sleeping on the streets. You're not getting anything from these properties right now. They're just sitting there derelict, dilapidated, empty. But it would just be too much of you just to simply be like, we're going to give you this apartment.
Fix it up and give it to you.
Yeah, and stay here, get your life in order, because a lot of them, they're drugs and have other type of ailments. So many. No, you'd rather have them out there in the street. You'd rather have the police come in, tearing up tearing up the grounds where they are. Putting all the people like
you'll put I saw this thing like in New York where they put these things on the grates.
Yeah, to prevent them from
people, from sleeping on them during the winter and stuff like that. You'd rather do that.
Right.
You'd rather invest in that than give them a home.
It's ridiculous. We can't give them a home, but you give them prison, a jail, where they get three meals. You rather do that, and because that pays
which
for
incurs this massive cost on us.
Right.
Instead of just giving them a home, it's much cheaper in the long run.
Yeah.
But it's like that's you're saying you have this thing. Well, people are going to say, well, I have to pay for my house. How come they get theirs for free? Right? You have said that.
Right.
You said that, so you don't want to do anything at all.
Right. So you would actually, so you prefer that if I have to pay for my house, that means you have to go to jail. That's
the narrative.
That's the line. You don't see anything wrong with that. First of all, do you see something wrong with the fact that you had to save up, I don't know how much, and do all this to purchase your home? Because you haven't purchased anything. You're mortgaging it, so whatever. So you don't see that was a problem even in that deal.
I don't even think people are saying that.
Right. I don't
even think people are saying
right.
that.
I'm quite sure that there may be a few. I'm quite sure.
I mean, like in general,
right?
There's always going to be exceptions.
Yes,
but in general, I don't think people have a problem with giving homeless people homes.
Right. I don't even think. I don't. Right.
But you're pushing this narrative. Like I said, I mean, the people, the system, they're pushing this narrative of apathy and carelessness and numbness.
It costs too much to care. Basically, that's what it's come down to. It costs too much to do the right thing, even though we know that it's simply not the case.
It doesn't. It's more profitable in the long run.
Right. It's more profitable even in the short term.
Yeah.
It's but That's just
No
not
matter,
how, you
yeah,
know.
and it's like, and it all, but there are people who are falling for this,
Mm-hmm.
who fall for this image
Mm-hmm.
of the apathetic human being
Mm-hmm.
who just doesn't care,
Right.
and he just just wants to exist in that little space and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said many times before that we're all the main characters in our own stories, and we
Mm-hmm.
all exist in our little bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing really matters until it invades that space,
Mm-hmm.
right? And but what I is that our space has been invaded.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like the social media, the news, and all this stuff is constantly force feeding you the most negative, most toxic aspects of humanity. You know, disasters and wars and all this stuff constantly being thrown in your face all the time. And it's not like you shouldn't know these things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that they've been twisted in a way that makes you think that that is the lion's share of humanity.
Just because you have done something wrong for so long, it doesn't mean that you can't stop doing that. Because then the question is always, when you think about this country, right? This country, it's built, like its foundation is genocide, racism, exploitation. That's what this is built on. So, and everything from that is being maintained from that. So, how is it that we can not continue with racism, genocide, and all of the other issues? That's what makes this country what it is.
It's like, but and they feed you this narrative
Mm-hmm.
of people have just accepted that people have
Mm-hmm.
just accepted that this is just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They feed you this narrative. They show you all the worst aspects
Mm-hmm.
of our world just to
Mm-hmm.
keep you coming back. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it lends toward this image of like I said, of apathy and carelessness and numbness that I don't think is there.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I think is actually happening is that the richest people, those who actually benefit from this, the politicians and all the people, have weaponized this image, have
Mm-hmm.
weaponized hopelessness, and are using it to keep people from actually doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Telling you that it is hopeless. There's nothing you can do. That
Mm-hmm.
that's just the cost. That's just what it is, and all this stuff. And I think that a majority of people don't actually feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
but we all exist in our little world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're force feeding you this image of yes, that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
Of people just don't care. Look at this Trump rally. People
Right.
don't care,
Mm-hmm.
right? Constantly showing you this stuff, and it's like I think, and you're using this.
Mm-hmm.
You're using this, to maintain your own system, and that's what you're doing. You're using apathy. You're using apathy to try to maintain your power by
Mm-hmm.
telling us that there's nothing that we can do, that we're too late.
We can rewrite ourselves. We don't have to continue this way. We know how all of this started. We know,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to continue this way. And we have to be strong enough to do what is right. And we have to, and I guess we have to just continue to pressure
Mm-hmm.
those, in power, the rich, or however you want to,
Mm-hmm.
how do you define them, to bend in a way to do what is right.
Which
And I don't.
is ass backwards, but that's
Yes,
the way
but
it has to go.
that's the way it has to go, because they are in the position to do right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it would cost you nothing to even do right.
We shouldn't have to convince you.
Yeah,
We, the people, should be the last ones to notice that anything's wrong.
right.
You're the one with direct access to the
Right,
experts, to the information, to
right,
the studies, to all that stuff. You're the ones with
right.
direct access to all this stuff. You should be the ones telling us
That's
about
right.
climate change,
Mm-hmm.
about and trying to like say you should be the provocators of change.
Right, but
But
you're
you're not
not.
doing it. You're the last ones to
Mm-hmm.
change. You're the last ones to do anything, right? But you're the ones who say and whose vote matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
The last ones to change. Like I said, it's ass backwards.
Right.
So we, down at the level, who can't really create any widespread systemic change,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to create our own alternative
Right.
and exist in
And
that,
that, right,
right, for as long as we possibly can
right. So if that
to
means,
provoke
right, if that
change
means
from those people.
Right, coming in, like if you live in Inglewood, Pullman, whatever, y'all gonna have to clamor in and live in this
Mm-hmm.
and live in your right. Then that's how it has to go.
And it
And
has to
maybe,
go that way
yeah,
forever
yeah,
until something like right happens, and it's
right.
like it shouldn't. It
Yeah,
shouldn't, and that's one another thing. It shouldn't be this way. That's
yeah.
another thing that leans toward that hopelessness,
Mm-hmm. It shouldn't.
right? It's unacceptable. It
Mm-hmm.
should not be this way.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if you do the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and if you continue to do it, then you won't even need them,
Yeah.
right? Then you won't even need them. But in conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's this very like pervasive image, mainly because and it's backed by just the world. This is
Yeah.
about how you
Yeah.
feel. It's
Yeah.
backed by this feeling of that of feeling stuck, but there's nothing that you can do. There's
Mm-hmm.
this overriding sense of futility lends toward apathy, right? But I think that the system in and of itself has weaponized this feeling
Mm-hmm.
to keep us apathetic,
Mm-hmm.
to keep us feeling that things are futile,
Yes. Yes.
right? And like I said, maybe we won't see the type of changes that we want to see in our time,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it is far from futile and it is far from hopeless to try and change things,
Mm-hmm.
to try and oppose the system. And I think that's a more accurate picture
Mm-hmm.
of how people are feeling right now and how people are reacting is that we're not hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, apathetic. We do care. We aren't numb. We want to do things. And in whatever way, shape, or form we can do them, they are being done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as long as we keep doing that, as long as we keep opposing and keep trying at whatever level we are
Mm-hmm.
to oppose the system, then we can create the type of change that we are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So just don't believe that people don't care.
Right.
Don't believe that we're apathetic, that people are numb, that there's nothing we can do. Don't believe that because that's them.
Right.
That's them force feeding us this narrative.
Right.
That's not the case.
Right.
So, yeah. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. And once again, thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.